Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Truth Addicts. So I'm here with Dina and Stephanie, and I am Joanna. And today we're going to talk about the aura. And although we talked about it before, today we're going to look a bit deeper and talk a bit more in detail about what it is, what it can do, the colors in the aura. So starting with a little bit of repetition, that the aura is the electro-energetic field around every single person who is alive. So there's an egg shape around us, and it is contained within that shape. So you might have seen pictures of an aura or even paintings of an aura, and some people will say, this is my aura and this is what it looks like, and these are the colors and these are what the colors mean. But the thing is that the aura breaks down and then reforms itself every 6, 7, or 8 seconds or so. It's like breathing in and breathing out. And it changes, because as our mood changes, as our thoughts change, as our feelings change, as our reactions to other things change, then so does the aura, and so do the colors in the aura. So it's very difficult to say that, oh, my aura is pink, because maybe that is how it's photographed. And also good to know that those Kirlian photographers, when they photograph the aura, they ask you to put your hand on a metal plate, and they put voltage through it. So even that will affect the aura. So yes, colors do mean something, and different emotions have different colors, different thoughts have different colors, but it changes all the time, just as we change all the time. So one example I will give is a murky red might mean that there is anger in the aura. And it all depends, again, on the colors, whether they are kind of dirty and murky and dark, or whether they're illuminated and bright. And that's the whole difference between the levels. So the higher the energy levels, the brighter the colors. And that's so easy to see, because the dark colors mean that there's some kind of pollution going on, there's some kind of negative emotion going on. Maybe even a disease is going on. So one can also, different diseases have different colors, which sometimes are even reflected in the names, like scarlet fever, for example.
I didn't know that.
Oh yes, oh yes. Or there's Black Death, right? And I can't think of, oh yeah, yellow, jaundice. It does appear as yellow, a dark yellow in the aura. So those are the ones I can think of at the moment.
Is jaundice the same as yellow fever?
No, I don't think so.
Huh.
But they're both yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I see things I see colors. I've never seen an aura before. But I see colors in going through the aura, and I see different things I can see glowing, like especially it's easier to see the glow around someone's head, because inside the aura there's many different parts. Like the aura is made up of different radiations. Like the radiation of your liver is in your aura. The radiation of your nerves are at the outmost edge. And then there's a radiation of your blood in the aura. There's a radiation of your bones in your aura, which actually is just very, very close to the skeletal structure. It doesn't radiate very far out because the bones are very dense. And so inside the aura, there's the radiation of every part of you that's made up. And so from time to time, I can see different things, but I've never seen the whole thing. That's something I'm hoping that I'll get to see at some point. But and it's always interesting, whenever I am able to see things in the aura, I always get so excited, because I think, it's really getting to see that the workings of something that's very real, but we rarely think about it. We rarely use it. And there's a lot of ways that you can actually use your aura very, very much to your advantage. And it's such a good thing to know about, because if you're sitting on, say, a busy subway train, or you're in line at the grocery store and the line is long, and you're packed in with a whole bunch of other people, and from time to time, you'll get thoughts that definitely aren't your own, or ideas that you have no idea where they've come from. And it's because, you know, when people get inside what we call our personal space, they're right in your aura, and your auras are mixing. And we've talked about this before. I know Dina mentioned this before, that about the fact that low things will just invade, and high things only come when you invite them. And so understanding that about your aura, that that's your energy bubble. And that if you want to really be someone who's sort of taken account of what they're thinking and processing what they're feeling, it's good to know about your aura, and that's part of the process. And having other people who enter your personal space can affect you. And so it's good to talk about shielding. Might be good to talk about how to shield, the colors of the shield, something like that.
Yeah. The lining, there is an outer lining of the aura. Sometimes people call it the auric sheath. And I think of that superhero Nick Cage. He has skin that can't be pierced. So he can't be stabbed or shot, or he's contained. And that makes him very strong and confident. He feels confident because his skin can't be pierced. So sometimes I think about the auric sheath in that way. And we can seal it and protect it so that it can't be pierced. And one technique is a blue shield. And it can be quite simple. I like to do movements, but it can be mental. And I imagine sky blue, very pale sky blue, completely surrounding the little bubble I live in. And what's in one's mind matters. So sometimes I'm not sure how big my bubble is. So I tell what it is that I am, that knows how to do things. Make sure that this is covering the whole of me. And make sure it's smooth and there's no holes, no gaps. That energy can move out, but there are some things below a line that can't get in. That's one way to make a shield.
Yeah, that's a great way. I've also, in the past, I have pretended in my mind to paint my aura with a paintbrush, of course, because I'm a painter. So it helps visually to imagine putting the blue on inch by inch, although I tend to do big strokes because I'm a little impatient. But it does help visually for me to think about the whole of my aura getting painted in a pale, pale blue. But you know what? I've actually heard that because of this is just a random piece I'm putting in here just for everybody to think about, to wonder about, to try out. There is no right or wrong. But I've heard that the world is becoming quite coarse and a little more toxic than before. That a really effective shield is ultraviolet. So pale, pale purple, I'm thinking. I've also heard people use silver shields. Have you ever heard of a silver shield? So nothing would enter below the level of silver. I have no idea. I've heard people use black shields, but
Yeah.
that would be wanting to keep absolutely everything out, correct?
Correct, yes. Yes, it will reflect everything. Yeah, a black shield.
So when would you use a black shield then?
Well, I think you would use it if you're in a difficult situation where you're maybe with people that you don't trust, or that something not good is going on, and you're witnessing it, and you just don't want to any of that to affect you. That's when you would put it up. I would be very careful and certainly bring it down again. And that's the thing about shields. You got to remember to bring them down, because when you're in a safe circumstance, like when you get back home, you don't want to have a shield up so that you can communicate with your loved ones without difficulty. Because if you have a shield up, especially, you might find it difficult to communicate. Or maybe in the store, you're standing in line and they'll ignore you. That's how he ignored me, because I became partly invisible, even though, you know, there I was standing there in line.
Yes, I have to say, it can be slightly dangerous to have a shield on in public. I did once have a man try to run over me with this grocery cart, and I was like, excuse me, I'm standing here. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't see you. And
Right, exactly.
that was interesting. So we've talked about pale blue, purple. I mean, clearly these are all the cool, soothing colors. What about something like red or orange or yellow?
I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, because they are the warmer colors, and you don't want to be heated up, because I think the culture and the way of the world is hot as it is, and there's a lot of extra kind of wavelengths going through this room. I have the internet, I have various phone signals, there's the police signals, who knows what all the signals are, and they're coming through. And I would like to be able to shield myself from them if possible. I mean, one thing that I do, and you might want to try this internet, the router every night, so that when we sleep, at least that is not coming into the apartment. So one other thing I'd like to mention, because one might wonder, why do we have this aura? Because if you look at trees, like at the energy of trees, they do have an energy, but it's in the shape of the tree. And then it kind of joins the atmosphere of the planet. So it dissipates. It isn't contained the way our energy is contained. Animals the same. If you have a cat or a dog, you can practice looking at it just above it and trying to see the energy. It does have an energy, and a very powerful energy, but again, it takes the shape of the animal and it dissipates into the planet's atmosphere. So the only really being that has a bubble around it is the human, as well as the planet itself. And one explanation for that is, if you see a bubble of air underwater, it's got a round shape. And as soon as it's released, maybe it was trapped under a piece of wood or a branch or something, and you take that piece of wood out, and the bubble of air comes up and joins its element, which is air. And the bubble had protected it within the element of water, but it was underwater, but it was still air, and it was protected as air. So one explanation of why the human has an aura is that we have our own element, which is like a higher vibration, and it is protected. It is protected. We're surrounded by this aura. So that's one explanation of why we have an aura. We have a unique ability to store energy, and to access energy as well, because our history lives inside the aura.
That's really, you know what? I don't think I've ever heard that before. And that's really interesting because, you know, I always talk about my body as a spacesuit.
Right.
So I think, yeah, you know, I think about this. I don't know. I just never realized that, yes, that the energy field is also maybe a part of being born sort of away from home.
Right.
You know, if you subscribe to the idea that we're here, I subscribe to the idea that we're here to change frequencies, to have our life, and then we're going back out into the universe. That we come from somewhere in the universe, we're here, and then we're going to go back out into the universe. So that makes so much sense. I never thought about it that way.
Something that's coming up in me is about simple ways to keep the aura clean, like showering, having cool water run through it, or any kind of water run through the aura. And I have heard of using ultraviolet to actually clean the area of the auric sheath. One would start with like a nice violet color, almost purple, and then imagine it getting lighter and lighter and lighter until it becomes the violet white of ultraviolet. And having in one's mind to clean anything that's gotten on during the day. Sometimes a person can even make barnacles on the edge of the inside of the aura themselves from their own unfortunate psychologies or emotional blow up that might happen. You can make little globs of dirt on your own aura. And so to have in your mind, as you turn the violet into ultraviolet, to clean anything on the inside and anything on the outside, make it smooth, cauterize any holes to make everything joined up nicely.
That's a good point. Getting holes in your aura. Because bouts of anger, bouts of stress, bouts of frustration, it's such hot, fast energy that it will actually puncture holes in the aura because your body's trying to get it out. I think. I don't actually understand the mechanics. I just know that it does very much feel that way when you get angry. And then you can sort of feel, I know that when I come down from the anger, you sort of feel a little bit vulnerable, a little bit lost. And some of this are things you have to take up and practice, but you can actually feel that the aura gets a bit lumpy. It's still a bit heated and a bit strange. And one of the ways you would actually do that to start to get a sense of your aura is with your hands. They're actually incredibly sensitive, and you can learn so much about energy from your hands. And you're, as a feminine gendered person, you would take your right hand because that's negatively polarized. And as a masculine gendered person, you would take your left hand because that is negatively polarized by 2/3. Maybe we'll get into all of that stuff later, but and so you would just cup it slightly so that it's there to receive. Clearly that's more transmissive, this is more receptive. And you could, just slowly start to move your hand through your aura and, using it like a satellite dish and see what you can pick up. And you can really start to feel, especially if you practice it. It's important to go slow. It's also good if you can kind of be in a calm surrounding. We've been doing a lot of trying to do aura work in the park where it's quite windy. Not so successful because you're looking to feel something very, very, very fine, very, very subtle. And so it's good if you can have an atmosphere that's also, you know, not breezy, not too bright, because you can also, as you go, you can also start to learn to train your eyes to see as well. And just trust yourself, trust the ability of your complex, your body, to pick it up and start to notice the differences. Hot and cold, thick, smooth, oily, fine, tingly. These are all things to wonder about, to see if you can feel or pick up.
Yeah, it's good also to exercise with nature. So if you go into the forest or into a park and just try and sense the trees, for example, you might get a really good success, because trees do have quite a powerful emanation, especially older trees, bigger trees. So yeah, that's also a way to practice your sensitivity. And just to mention a couple of colors, because we did mention a few at the beginning, we mentioned that anger can produce red, but there's also other colors that can appear in the aura, of course. And so, for example, there are sayings in the language that reflect that. So another, some people might say when they feel angry, I saw red, and it's true, they do. And I've known people who have admitted that when they were angry, they actually saw red in front of their eyes, because their aura was turning red with anger. Another saying is to have a yellow streak, or a yellow belly, which is to do with cowardice. And yellow is very much connected with the emotions, and people who are feeling afraid will have a very powerful emotion, and it does turn up as a kind of darker yellow. But then it also can, at a higher level, emotions can turn up as a very light yellow, an illuminated yellow. Green with envy, here's another one that is in the language, and it really does reflect, again, a darker green. Envy, jealousy. Jealousy is the green-eyed monster, as Shakespeare said, and it does turn up in the aura as with a dark green color. At a higher level, green can be to do with healing, can be to do with the connection with the planet, with nature. So there's obviously levels to these colors as well, and that's really important, that the gradation is from dark to very light and shiny, illuminated.
Sometimes headdresses are indications of functions and things that you find in the aura. For example, a chief's headdress, a Native American chief with different colors and flowing down the back. Some of the hats that are worn by clergy. Plumes worn by monks.
Yeah, that's an amazing research. Just fascinating when you start to realize that many ancient cultures saw electrically. And the way that we know this is because why else are they doing all that crazy stuff? You know, painting their bodies, all these interesting colors, wearing these fantastical things, sticking really far out from their bodies. And in ancient Egypt, in all the paintings, I don't want to say hieroglyphs, but you know, painted on the walls, they're wearing hats. They never discovered one single hat. So I think for me, I can definitely take the leap that they saw it electrically and they depicted it, because it's rare to find anyone without a hat on. And another interesting thing, I know we're talking about the aura, but it's also interesting also to look at their hands, because we did talk about the fact that the hands are tools and sensitive. Not only do they feel, but they also transmit. And in so many of the pictures, it's good to just be curious to look at what people's hands are doing. And you can find this in every culture. There's some sort of very interesting headdress. I'm sure it's not fun to walk around with these enormous hats on your head. They have to be for some other reason. I think it's depicting formations in the aura, which usually indicate a lot of intelligence, a lot of creativity, a very spiritual aspect, a connection to something very high. Like you see people, in Egypt especially, there was a lot of suns depicted, and I think very possibly they were saying that they had a connection to the potency and the energy of the sun. Cultures with moons. Go ahead.
Saints with halos. Very common.
Yeah, that's one thing that I actually do see from time to time. It's actually fairly easy to see people when they have halos, which always makes me smile. That's somebody that you're lucky if you get to talk to them.
Right.
I see people wearing headbands, colored headbands. Sometimes I just see a dark shadow, and sometimes there's a color. And it's interesting that the Native Americans, people in martial arts, in Rome, they wore golden ones. Headbands are something that they're used. They have a history.
Yeah, and going back to hands, I don't know if you've seen these Thai dancers who have like metal extensions to their fingers. I actually had a pair of those, but interesting because that's the shape of the emanation from the fingers. Because hands are very powerful in a way because we extend a lot of energy through the hands, and we received a lot of energy through the hands. So that is the shape of the emanation from the fingers. But I think what happened was that over the centuries, people lost the ability to see the energies of the aura or that are inside the aura. And so to, in a way, remind oneself about them or remind their audience about them, these dancers, especially the temple dancers, would wear these metal extensions which would accentuate the hands. But in the old days, I believe that they actually could see the emanation from the hands. And there's like in Indian dancing, there's these different mudras where if you touch different fingers to each other, they mean different things. So you can tell a story in just with your hands. So hands are very expressive in the aura.
Yeah, I have to say recently, speaking of hands, I recently was working in someone's home and they had this amazing statue, and it was, I don't know if it was from Thailand, but it was somewhere like that. And they had depicted all these hands in the aura and all these flames, and they had other symbols, and it was clear that it was a very, very religious person, and what was depicted was everything in their aura. And as I stood there looking at it, I started to become completely amazed because they were depicting an entire spiritual journey. I realized they had a peach up above their head to indicate immortality. There's so many different things that you can actually see in the aura as people become more developed. But I literally stood there for almost 20 minutes and just thought, wow, they're saying this in the aura is saying that they had a level of healing. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that told me that, but it was all there in this statue, all the things that you would find. And one of the things was the multiple hands. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know. I wondered about that actually. But there's so many things to do with art, to do with sculptures. It's really good to go back to the museums, if you have any local museums, and start to look at things now with new eyes and wonder about them. And of course, yes, it was easier for me to translate because I knew a few things, but you can always Google it. I mean, this is what we have now. It's amazing what is out there. There's a lot of good information about this stuff. So if you see, for example, a peach in the aura, you can Google it. And it's really fun to do, and starts to open up your eyes about the fact that these unseen worlds do exist and we can see them, and we can definitely have a much better engagement when we start to become sensitive to our aura.
Yeah, very often the statues of Shiva are portrayed with these flames at the edge of the aura, which speaks about a very high energy aura, illuminated aura. I've got here an Indian statue, a dancer.
Oh.
And she's holding her right hand in a very deliberate way, where she's brought her thumb to the next finger, which is flavoring the energy of the thumb with what you can see to be the red finger. So she's transmitting almost like a pink color there. And the other thing about this is, I'm going to bring it closer, is the headdress. Because and quite often Thai dancers have this like pointy top to their headdress. She's got a crown, and then she's got this point, which talks about a transmission from her head. So as she's dancing, she's making it an energetic transmission through the aura, presumably to up the ray of creation to the creator. So.
That's great. Yeah, and oftentimes you see the Buddha having a pointed head. There's so many things. I also think that it must work, well, again, my opinion, it must be a two-way street. So not only can she send a transmission, she can also receive downloads. That's what I would think.
Right. Okay.
So tonight I will shower, and I will clean my aura, starting with violet, growing to ultraviolet. I'll be pleased that I have my own atmosphere that I live inside. And maybe you will too. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.